This is a beginning point. This is the beginning of the rest of my life. I got the meaning, and I got to write it down, because I don't want to forget it.
Just win, baby.
And welcome back to the Gold Jacket Podcast with me, your host, Gymnastic. Follow me on Twitter at Gold Jacket QBs. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, man, how you been?
I've been good, man. I've been excited for this episode for a while. And I mean, I wish we could talk about Joe Flacco to the Eagles, but we promised a running back episode. So,
yeah, man, for sure. And it's going to be a pretty big episode. I've been looking forward to it myself. We got a special guest with us today. With us today is Damian Parsons. And Damian, how are you doing?
I'm good, fellas. I'm hyped, man. You know what I mean? It's like 9:15 on the East Coast right now, and I'm just wide awake, ready to get this thing going.
I love it. We are so excited for this episode because we've been talking like at length, ad nauseum about Travis Etienne and Najee Harris and Javonte Williams. We know, though, that's your 1, 2, 3. Put them in any order you want. They're your 1, 2, 3. So we wanted to knock out the best of the rest. We wanted to hit on what we can expect from the rest of this class and look at that tier 2, that tier 3, and maybe even some something undrafted, something exciting there. So let's get this started. We'll start with tier 2. You sent us a list and kind of set us up for this. I've been watching film, checking these guys out. Some of the guys I may not have known a whole lot about before. So let's start with the first guy on the list. Let's start with Michael Carter. Big fan, by the way. I love Michael Carter. So let's get into it with Michael Carter. What do you like about Michael Carter, and what do you think is going to translate well from college to the NFL?
Michael Carter is that he's dynamic out of the backfield. He's low center of gravity. I believe he's like 5'9", 5'10", being generous there. 202 pounds, like strong frame. So like when you watch him, he's a jitterbug at the same time, dual threat type of running back, what fits what teams want usually in the RB2. He doesn't have the, like, he's not, Austin Eckler is an undersized RB1, but he's short, but he's not small. So it's like, that's a little different. He's kind of rocked up. So he can kind of take that RB1 type of production and touches and carries. But when I look at Michael Carter, like one thing when I've held film sessions on him, I told everybody, listen, this is why I want you to throw out the stat book a lot of times, because there are so many times where he's wide open on routes and Sam Howell is like channeling his inner Sam Darnold and does not care about the check down. So he does not look at Michael Carter whatsoever. But Michael Carter is the type of back that you pair with a bigger back. Like I would love to see him in like Tampa, right behind Ronald Jones with Leonard Fournette on the free agent wire. They need that dynamic back out of the backfield, which is probably going to be in James White. Tom Brady's like, yeah, let me go get my Patriot guy over here because we need him. So I definitely think that's going to end up happening. But that's just kind of what I see with Michael Carter. Just he's an RB2 in a nice committee, and he's a change of pace guy. And think about it, for him to be only 5'9", he's good in pass pro. You don't really see smaller guys be able to stick their nose or be willing to stick their nose in pass protection. He does so many different things well, especially in open space. Like he can really get, like we talked about on the pod last night, Jalen Hurts. I love Jalen Hurts' description of being in the open field, getting freaky in open field. Michael Carter can do that with good feet, being able to set defenders up, string together different moves. But he's also dynamic enough to take it to the house. Just ask Miami, right? He had 300 plus yards against them himself. Then Javonte Williams out there trucking guys, making it look like a construction site. So that's just kind of that's why I look at with Michael Carter. Just a dual threat guy, change of pace, a very fun prospect.
Yeah, I mean, I've been big on Michael Carter for the whole process because I kind of see him like kind of like Darren Sproles almost like a really
That's who I think.
I almost think a better Darren Sproles though. Like I almost think like if he can get to the NFL level and everything translates like what we saw at the college level, he can definitely be better than that. And I definitely like the idea of like if we talk landing spots, I definitely like the idea of landing behind Ronald Jones because he's going to take the heavy burden, heavy workload for you. And I mean, there's not a whole ton of spots that you can think of in the NFL right now as that power back and then nothing waiting behind him, nothing really there with just Keyshawn Vaughn waiting there. And I would take Michael Carter over Keyshawn Vaughn any day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I think the best attribute that I love about Michael Carter is his feet. Like he's patient. He's very patient because they run a lot of pin and pull. They'll pull guard, tackle, and run power plays. And you have to, as a running back, you have to be patient with that. You can't outrun your two lead blockers because you're really going to just destroy the whole play. But as a running back, there's a saying: slow to, fast through. So you're slow to the hole, following your blockers. Let them engage, let them set up, and then you burst through it. And that's how he gets in the open field. And then once he is in the open field, like I said, his feet. He's not a complacent runner. So like even when it's not blocked perfectly, his feet are still moving. He's still bouncing, trying to find a lane instead of sitting still and waiting for something to happen. He's looking for it. He's an active runner, active guy. And when it comes down to having the ball in his hand, and like I said, just getting him out of space, the Texas route, the putting the flare route into the flats, the wheel route. You put him in Tampa Bay, I'm telling you right now, you put him in Tampa Bay, Tom Brady is going to have a field day with him, motioning him all over the formation, finding that mismatch, finding that heavy-footed linebacker that can't run, and they're going to go 3-by-1. He's going to call Jordan and shift him outside to the X, and now it's a fly route or a comeback route to Michael Carter for 20 yards. And it's like, well, what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I do actually agree with you on the James White point. The fact that he hasn't signed anywhere just makes you feel like the longer you wait through this free agency period, the cheaper the market is becoming. And so it's just looking more and more likely that James White will end up parked behind Ronald Jones. What's your thoughts on Michael Carter, Jim, and a landing spot, if you can think of some other better landing spots?
Well, I like the Tampa Bay one, and I like the Tampa Bay one because of Tom Brady and the motioning out. It's funny, the guy that I really, really think that he could replace because is in the Patriots organization. I don't really see a need for Sony Michel. I'm pretty sure they can cut him for pretty cheap. I think like $2 million, and he could be your pass catching James White light behind Damian Harris. I don't really see why Cam can't use that nice check down safety net that if your 2 or 3 fucking tight end sets are all covered. But yeah, he's definitely intriguing to me to New England, but I don't know, but I'm just thinking New England because I'm thinking of New England with Tom Brady. So Tampa Bay makes a really good sense too there, man. So I'm not sure if it's Belichick or Brady that's the one making that guy gold. So we're going to find out though.
Yeah, definitely. I'll throw one more landing spot out there, honestly, because it's more so for just a team need. Pittsburgh. Like, I think you throw him into Pittsburgh, they still need a bell cow back. But I think Matt Canada likes speed. He likes to kind of spread it out a little bit more. They can go with Anthony McFarland and Michael Carter in the backfield and pony sets with Big Ben and just literally space it out. Juju in the slot, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and really stress the defense. Because at the end of the day, defenses are trying to become more what we call positionless football, play positionless football. You got safeties playing linebackers. You got linebackers transitioning to defensive ends and stand-up ends. So now offensively, you have to counter that with putting as much speed and explosiveness on the field to create as many matchups as possible.
Yeah, I can see Pittsburgh working out, honestly. I mean, I know like they got Anthony McFarland there as well as Coach Craig in the comments is saying he prefers McFarland to Carter. For me, like I'm the same way though. They need to get like a bell cow back. They gotta get a strong back. Like, I mean, could you imagine like a Javonte Williams and Michael Carter going together to like Pittsburgh or something like that? That could be interesting. Like, but they need a bell cow. They need someone who's gonna. They thought they might have it with James Conner, and that just clearly didn't work. It didn't fit. He couldn't produce. It was just he was giving you your 2 or your 3 yards per carry. Some we were talking about pre-episode, like with Kenyon Drake in Arizona. He'll get you your 2 or 3 yards. He can be pretty effective in the red zone, but ultimately he wasn't doing enough to open the field up, like you said. And they got every weapon they need, but the running backs to really open that field up for them. And so Michael Carter would be a massive help there.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next one. This one's going to be a fun one because this is someone who we DM'd about. I'm not as big on. You are. I know me and Jim talked pre-show about this too, and Jim is kind of on the fence about this one too. So this is one where we'll like
definitely not as high.
So this is Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis. So let us know what you think about Kenneth Gainwell. What's going to translate over to the NFL? Are we looking at an Antonio Gibson, a better than Antonio Gibson, as that's probably the comp everyone's going to look at?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the comp we're going to look at. We talked to, like I said, when we did our running backs podcast over at Crocker Report, that when we got to him, like we talked about the fact that Antonio Gibson had 30 carries while he was in Memphis. And the reason why is because of Kenneth Gainwell. That's how good Kenneth Gainwell was. He kept him out of the running back rotation to where they just put him as a big slot receiver who is now playing full-time running back for the Washington football team. When you look at Gainwell, quick feet, he's elusive. Now, of course, 2019, he was about like a $180, $185. Then you see him at his pro day. And granted, like I was able to see some things before his pro day that I was like, when I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, no, he's definitely focused in on his physique. He's much bigger, much stronger. And that was something he wanted to make sure of. You know, it's like you see some guys, they come into the draft process, they played 230, but then they want to slim down to a 215. Him, on the other hand, is like, I want to gain an extra 15, maybe 20 pounds, and he carries it well, like strapping, rocked up kind of frame. To where that will help his contact balance. Like I said, in and out of his cut, his footwork is good. But I love the versatility. Like what Memphis, I'm not sure. Listen, Memphis is becoming RBU in a way. Like I love what they're doing with their running backs because their running backs are coming in with a dual skill set, which is what the NFL has transitioned to. Tony Pollard was just like Antonio Gibson. He played more slot receiver than running back. And now he does whatever Dallas needs him to do, even kick returns. Same thing with Antonio Gibson. Daryl Henderson was more of a prototypical running back for Memphis. He didn't, line up in the slot. He didn't have that skill set, but he's still a quality running back, in that committee for the Rams. But Gainwell, like I said, you can put him in the slot. You can move him out wide. You can jet motion him. You can get creative with him. He runs good routes as well. And that's kind of the thing that really stuck out with me is, again, you're trying to find mismatches at the NFL level. And when I can take a running back, if I can come out in the base set, take my running back and shift him out into the slot against your middle linebacker, I favor that. It's not just – it doesn't have to be – and the thing about it, we see ETN and a lot of these other running backs, they run like just kind of more the simplistic running back route tree, the Texas route, the wheel, things like that. But Gainwell can actually run routes like a receiver. And that's the part that really stands out because you look at the Christian McCaffrey, the Alvin Kamaras, that's the part that makes him so special. When you say, you know what, that's fine. We hold you to 40 yards on the ground, but then they motion you out all the time, and now you have 110 receiving. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It makes them so dangerous. So for Kenneth Gainwell, it's just a complete skill set, the versatility, great hands, tracks the ball well downfield, 4.42 speed. He has the speed to break away from you, and now he has the frame to take on the punishment and deliver it. I think we're going to see a different Gainwell at the NFL level.
That would be good. That would be exciting. I mean, I do agree he's a really good receiving back. I love him as a receiving back, and they did spread him out a bit. I mean, in 2019, he played 21% of receiving snaps from the slot and 4% out wide. So, I mean, you can move them around the formation. Yeah. You can open up the field with them and stuff, which is good. for me, when I watched the film, I found him to kind of be a stiff back. And that's what I said to you. I didn't find like he didn't bend much. He didn't do any of that. He just kind of used his tall frame and in hopes that like you get the arm tackles and he just run through the arm tackles and stuff. I didn't really see like this insanely elusive back. Now, when he was receiving the ball, like catching the ball and running after the plays, he looked to me, he looked more elusive in those situations than as a running back. That's what I saw personally on Gainwell. What about you, Jim?
My problem with Gainwell is one from just like he's a good NFL or a good college player. He'll probably transition well for a team in the NFL, but I don't see like there's a big pendulum swing. Like you mentioned Tony Pollard, but like Tony Pollard as a fantasy podcast, Tony Pollard isn't winning you week in and week out. He's not a guy that you're drafting as your RB2. Like there's a lot of variables here that are going into Gainwell, and I don't see a lot of teams that can meaningfully use him as an RB1 like Washington can. Like that's my problem. Carolina, they got a guy locked in. Saints, they got a guy locked in with that offense. I don't see the Patriots doing it. Bills, maybe, but I mean, like they already invested 2 years in a row in running backs. Like, are they going to hit the well again on a guy? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure if they're gaining well on that.
They should.
Yeah, Damian. So I guess
Buffalo definitely should.
It definitely is a mess in Buffalo. If they dipped in for a third year, I don't know if from a fantasy perspective, I don't think I'd go near a running back there because you don't know who's going to do what on a given week. But let's talk landing spot for Kenneth Gainwell. Where would he need to land for you to see that perfect translation from college into this really good back at the NFL level? And for fantasy purposes, a good fantasy back.
For fantasy, for me, it would be Miami.
That's a great spot. That was one of the spots I thought about as well, was Miami. I mean, I like Gaskins, but when I look at if I have to choose between who I'm going to feed as a play caller, Gainwell or Gaskins, I'm feeding Gainwell. Like I'm feeding Gainwell all the way because he has a more versatile skill set than Gaskins. Undersized player. He's good in the passing game, and he can give you some sparks, but he's more of a spark plug off the bench, kind of like a sixth man in the NBA. He's not a full-time starter, but he comes off the bench. He gets you buckets. He adds some juice to your offense. So I think Miami's a good fit for him. I would have loved to. And for granted, everybody knows me. I'm more scout than fantasy. So a lot of the things I do isn't always fantasy relevant because I'm always.
We'll try and bring it to fantasy for you. You
absolutely.
But I mean, granted, they signed Kenny Drake, but the Raiders would have been a great landing spot to pair him with. Just from an offensive standpoint, pair him with Josh Jacobs, where both of them are versatile guys. And a lot of times, man, like you talked about with Tony Pollard. That's it's Dallas. Dallas is all Zeke's backfield, is all Zeke's offense for the most part. Even Dak was a afterthought until they realized, hey, we got to get something out of the quarterback position. And so it's just like that's a tough spot because regardless, while Zeke is there, they're going to feed Zeke. And, he's a cash cow in that backfield. So that's going to happen for him. But, I mean, because the weird thing about it is, like a kind of not like a full comp, but a low end kind of skill set wise, I can see a little bit of Miles Sanders in Kenneth Gainwell. Like I said, neither one of them are power backs, right? But you look at the inside zones, the outside zones, the toss sweeps, the different ways of getting them the ball out in space and allowing them to be just elusive in open field. That's kind of how I look at Kenneth Gainwell at the same time. And of course, vision wise, patience. Because we talked about Travis Etienne, and Travis Etienne actually wasn't in my top three anymore. Like after watching more and more film on him, there's some red flags for me when it comes to Travis Etienne. I do love his game, but there's some things that really worry me, and the rest of us over at Crocker Report. But so I really think Miami will be a great fit, especially like I said, fantasy wise. Because you think about Tua doesn't have any issues. Tua's a cerebral quarterback. So Tua is going to get through his reads and hit the open guy. Kenneth Gainwell in the flats on the Texas route, the slants, different things like that. and it's an RPO type of offense as well. West Coast type of concepts. Tua would hit him and get him the ball in space phenomenally. Like Tua would love that. Granted, I think Najee Harris is going to be Tua's running back, but still, that's kind of the situation that if he went anywhere, I think right now to be like a RB1 per se, Miami will probably be the best fit.
Yeah, I agree with the take there. I think Najee Harris or Travis Etienne going to Miami almost feels inevitable at this point because they avoided the running back through free agency and stuff, and now they're obviously not just going to roll in with that, especially when I think they have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. Yeah. You can definitely leverage those picks and invest in some positions where you may already have 2 or 3 guys lined up. You can get more premium at that position.
Exactly. They tried free agency last year. Remember they the whole what was it?
Jordan Howard and Matt
Jordan, yeah, no, that failed. So go ahead into the draft, get some of these, get a young talented cat to come back there and spell Tua in the backfield.
Definitely. Any more you want to put in on the Gainwell talk there, Jim?
No, I'm okay with Gainwell. Like I said, I don't think he's a bad back, but there's a lot of different outcomes that you can see. Like if Tony Pollard wasn't on the fucking Dallas Cowboys, he'd be a back I'd probably be targeting because he is a back that is what the NFL is transitioning to. That's my only, and I just don't see a lot of teams, like I said, that have an open spot for a back like that, or they do in the coaching staff in place that I think would properly use them. That's my problem with them.
Yeah, I can definitely say that because one thing in fantasy that we talk a lot about is opportunity. And I mean, you look around the wide receiver free agent class, and now even next year, the wide receiver free agent class, the running back class this year, the running back class next year, even now, they're all shaping up to be super intriguing. And I mean, you're going to take somebody who you already know translated over to the NFL and stuff, although we all know that deadly second contract for running backs is very, very suspicious one because you never know what's going to happen if they survive 1 year, 2 years, none of that contract whatsoever. Man. That's the toughest thing. But I mean, these
second contract, it's crazy, man.
So deadly for people. But I mean, we got a couple of pretty deep free agent classes at some positions that are really going to eat up the opportunity that might actually be out there from a fantasy standpoint, at least. Yep. But that's not to say that some of these guys from this class won't translate to good NFL players, which is something Damian would more be looking at as a good football player versus a fantasy asset here. But we'll move on to the next one. This is one that I know my co-host Jim likes, and I know he's excited to talk with you about, and that is Trey Sermon. So Damian, what do you think about Trey Sermon? I know the one thing that stands out is definitely not a lot of tread on the tires, but I think that also comes with the, I think for me, some injury concerns, some wear and tear concerns, even though I don't even think he had more than 400 rushing attempts through 3 years in college. I think he was like his biggest year was 150, 160, if I remember correctly. So what are your thoughts on Trey Sermon, and give us a landing spot that you like?
I really like Trey Sermon, and I think he would be a very good pro. The durability concerns are legit. So then it goes to, you got to look at this type of player he is too. He is a violent physical player. That doesn't usually tend too well when you do have some injury history. So it's like you got to be developed more so mentally as a running back to where you say, hey, I'm going to step out of bounds rather than lowering the shoulder and just making this guy feel me early in the first quarter. I'm going to take some of these hits off my body. But he's got good vision, patience, burst. He strings together moves. And I actually put up a couple clips on Twitter. Like the way his contact balance is insane as well. His lower body is strong where he absorbs hits as well as gives them. Ask Clemson. Dear God, ask Clemson. Like he put on a show against Clemson. And it was kind of overshadowed because Justin Fields put on the show and outplayed, touchdown Jesus in the scouting community in Trevor Lawrence. But just Trey Sermon, like I said, he has all the traits that you look for. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I don't think he's going to be a 4-4-4-3 guy by any means, but his speed is good enough, right? He doesn't have to, at the running back position, you don't have to be a track star. We just need you to be good in short to intermediate burst and quickness. Like I said, he fits kind of a zone blocking scheme very well. Like I said, he allows his blockers to set up. He's good in pass pro. He could be a very good professional running back and a solid guy. You know, he could come in and be an RB1 if a team lacked an RB1. The problem is, can he last? Like with that violent running style, with someone that had, the shoulder injuries, had knee injuries, like he's had injuries. You just got to stay healthy. And I think if he stays healthy, I think he can leapfrog a veteran running back that's a little bit older, in the league and become that team's RB1. But again, you just got to stay healthy. But I love everything he brings to the table. I know a lot of people are like, well, he started – listen, as a former running back, I always tell people, you got to understand the position. Running backs take time to get going, man. Like you can't just 5 or 6 carries here or there. That doesn't get you going. When you get consistently fed, which is because if you look at the beginning of the season, they were kind of splitting carries with him and Master T. Like they were kind of going back and forth. And as the season progressed and got closer to where they really needed the run game to take off, that's when they put the ball in his stomach. They put the offense kind of on his shoulders, especially with like the COVID started hitting their receiving core and Chris Olave missed the Northwestern game. I think it was Northwestern or Indiana. Justin Fields had the hand injury, and they just rolled the back of Trey Sermon. And once he got into a rhythm, you saw exactly how potent of a running back he can be. So I really love his game and what he brings. He's outside of my top 5 right now. He's my 6th running back on my list at the moment. But like I said, and that's mainly because of the durability concerns.
Yeah, I really like Trey Sermon too. I like the way you describe him as a violent runner. I agree with that. I think he's got some good football IQ too. You watch, like he's a guy, he falls forward, he pushes forward for that extra yard. You can tell he's got good vision of the field. And, like you say, he's genuinely going to be a good guy. I do have durability concerns just like you. And like, I mean, for me, I don't know, like if I can see him doing like, for fantasy, if I turn to fantasy for a minute, I just don't see him I see him as a good football player. I see him as a good guy in a backfield. Like if he came to Philadelphia, pairing him with Miles Sanders, I would love that. But is that good for fantasy? Is that good for anybody who we're talking to right now? No, 100% not. It's not even really good for Miles Sanders because you're taking some carries off of him. And the big storyline out of Philadelphia last year was feed Miles Sanders. So if you go from let's give Miles Sanders 20 carries, and suddenly he's down into the 12 to 15 range because Trey Sermon's taking 5 to 8 carries, then the intrigue for both of them definitely goes away. Jim, I know you love Trey Sermon, so I'll let you get in on this. And do you think there's a spot where he can be a viable fantasy option?
Yeah, there's actually 3 spots I can see him being a very viable fantasy option. I do have a little bit of concerns with his injury history because there's 2 different ways this tale could go. He could go Frank Gore and never see another injury again, or he could go Rodney Anderson and get hurt in preseason and out rookie season already. Like, right. There's 2 different ways that this can go. But I'm going to roll a dice. The fact of the matter is an NFL team is not going to get him in the 1st or 2nd round, probably fucking 3rd round, which that's fine. Probably maybe even 4th. You're not taking him in the rookie draft in your 1st or 2nd round. You're probably going to be taking, if it's 2nd, it's the back end of the 2nd. It's probably mid 3rd, maybe 4th, depending on like how your league mates are really going. So the investment in it isn't even that concerning to me. If he plays, he's a jackpot lottery because he can definitely overtake veterans. The 3 teams that I'd like to personally see him playing for fantasy options would be Pittsburgh. I see him as a very viable kind of style that James Conner, even though you still have injury concerns, but whatever. But you're not paying Conner a 2nd contract. The Jets, I think he could do some damage behind especially if they keep Sam Darnold, man. Like I'd like to see Sam Darnold there without some Adam Gase. And then the dream scenario is going to be Atlanta. Let's see what they're going to do in the draft, and if they want to address some other needs and take a running back without a majority pay with not taking a big swing at it. Trey Sermon is definitely a type of running back that they could take a swing on.
I love that. That was God. I forgot to give my landing spot, but that was my landing spot. Atlanta, because you look at it, okay, they don't. I mean, they brought in Mike Davis. If I'm not mistaken, they signed Mike Davis, and he'll be a great tutor at the same time. While he can still be productive, he'll be a great tutor to teach Trey Sermon how to be a pro and the different things of being an NFL running back. As Trey Sermon continues to climb in terms of snap count and carries to eventually take the number one running back spot. Actually, I had someone that covers the Falcons that I'm cool with on Twitter actually DM me, was like, who is the ideal running back for the Falcons? I was like, Trey Sermon. That's the line of the spot for me. I think he could be just phenomenal in Arthur Smith's kind of zone blocking scheme. That is a phenomenal fit.
Yeah, I mean that's
there's not even a lot of pressure on him to be the one if he goes there. Like you said, he can sit for a bit.
And also, when you think about the fact that running backs, Arthur Smith had Derrick Henry, who saw, I think, about 35 to 40% of his carries with stacked fronts, because even though they had AJ Brown and Corey Davis, teams still knew if Derrick Henry gets 100 plus, we lose. That's just the nature of it all. But you can't do that to Trey Sermon in Atlanta, because you got Calvin Ridley and Hayden Hurst and Julio Jones and Russell Gage. The receiver weapons are going to force you to play split safety, at worst, cover one single high safety with a robber at the strong safety position. So that's the worst case scenario. But with the whole offense healthy, you're playing split safeties. Don't get me wrong. You're doubling Julio, and you're trying to figure out, can I double Calvin Ridley as well? Then Russell Gage is cooking in the slot, and you finally get Hayden Hurst between the hashes. And now Trey Sermon is just like, man, this is a 5 to 6 man front. Let's check this. Let's check this to some zone right. Let's check that, and let's have some fun with it, because now they're a nickel. Let's have fun with this. Let's run the ball right at this nickel corner and see what he can do about it. Is he a force player? I doubt it. And I'm going to run through him, and we're going to get a couple yards and get downfield a little bit. And just get freaky with it, like Jalen Hurts said.
Yeah, for me, Trey Sermon definitely in Atlanta is definitely an exciting option. Like you guys said, he can start out with a 25% workload, work into 50, and hopefully by the end of the year, he's seeing more of the workload than Mike Davis is seeing, and we're seeing the full complement of Trey Sermon on display with no injuries. Because of course the thing would be that we want no injuries out of Trey Sermon, but yeah, his run style definitely bodes well towards what Arthur Smith would like to see and what Arthur Smith would be looking for in that offense. Because I mean, he's got nothing right now. Ito Smith and Mike Davis and Kadri Olson really aren't the answer, and really aren't the type of back that he's going to look to carry the load there and to open the field up. But I mean, you get a Trey Sermon, that's definitely one for sure. The next one I want to move that we're going to move into is someone I actually really like, and I think I can see the fit in Atlanta as well, and that is Colin Hill. So, Damian, take it away.
I stumbled upon Colin Hill over the summer during my summer scouting series, and first thing came off the mind is physicality. He's a physical runner, downhill, can run in man blocking scheme as well as his zone. He can be a little impatient at times, where he'll outrun his blocks, run into the back of his blockers. But when he's on, he sets the tone. And we saw in the one game in Mike Leach's system when they featured him as a receiver, and he had over 100 yards receiving. And then he realized how bad Mike Leach's offense was, and he decided to opt it out, which was a good idea because he wasn't going to use him the correct way. But I really like him. I think he has. I think he's more of an RB2 in the NFL with some RB1 upside. Depending on landing spot, of course. If Atlanta would be great for him. I'm not gonna lie, I would love to see him with Kyler Murray because the Falcons do have needs in the interior O-line and cornerback, so I could see them going those two spots early on with their first two draft picks. So Colin Hill, day 3, 5th round. I'm not sure what he's gonna run. I don't know. I'm not sure what he's gonna run at this pro day. Now, granted, if he busts a 4.4, 4.3, that's gonna change some evaluators' minds. But like I said, his contact balance is ridiculous. Like his core strength, his leg strength, he finishes runs similar to Trey Sermon, just violent. And you look at him, he's a strong physical frame kid as well. And he's got good, like his burst is legit as well in the short to intermediate areas. So like I said, the landing spot, like Atlanta, if Atlanta wanted to wait, like I said, because Trey Sermon, I think Trey Sermon's be a 3rd round pick. Colin Hill, you can get in the 4th or 5th round, most likely. So if they wanted to wait, shore up some other areas, whether it's getting another cornerback, adding some a playmaker at safety, as well as in fixing the offensive line some more in such a deep offensive line class, and they want to go running back in the 4th, 5th round, Colin Hill could be there. But again, like I said, if the Cardinals decide to pass on Javonte Williams, which I don't want them to, but if they did, I would definitely see a pairing of Colin Hill and Chase Edmonds in the backfield with Kyler Murray. They can do a lot of different things there, and Colin Hill could come in as that RB1. I think I saw a quote that they talking about Chase Edmonds as a RB1 in Arizona. I don't believe that. That's not going to happen. I truly believe they're going to draft a running back to become that RB1 and use him as a supplemental back, that number 2. And that's not bad. I mean, that's not a knock on him. It's just that's the role for him. That's the best role for him. So I would like to see Kylie Hill, like I said, in Arizona. Also, another landing spot. I mean, I love Joe Mixon. He's battled some injuries though, and I'm not a Giovanni Bernard fan, and especially not in fantasy. Dear God, I'm not in fantasy either. So getting a young back that can come in, and if Joe Mixon goes down again, you got somebody that can supplement him, and it could be a trustworthy replacement. Granted, he doesn't have the 4.4 speed, but he has a lot of different qualities that could really help that offense in Cincinnati and help Joe Burrow. So that's my 3rd landing spot for him.
Yeah, I'm a big Kylie Hill fan. I've been through the whole process and through the whole offseason. He's been one of my favorites and like bordering on top 5 for me. And it's for the exact reasons you said, man. Like he's a violent runner. The first note I have is violent runner ! He's just a really downright violent runner and aggressive runner. His vision lacks, like you said. I saw so many times where he just constantly wants to burst a hole. He constantly wants to just be going, and he runs into the back of his O-line, or he just misses a hole altogether because the hole's somewhere else in that line. But when he gets going, I've seen him like a pinball. Like you say, he's like a pinball, man, and his contact balance is incredible. He plays bigger than his size. Like me and Jim were talking right before the episode. He's like, wow, Jim was like, I didn't realize he was as big as he is. And I think he plays even bigger than what he is. It's 5'11", 215 or something. I think he plays a lot bigger than that. And he moves really quickly. I like the landing spots you chose, definitely. I mean, for me, I just touch on the Chase Edmonds thing. I have a lot of Chase Edmonds shares, and I would love for him to be the RB1. Don't get me wrong, because, I mean, for fantasy, that's awesome. That's your guy who's going to be standing behind or beside Kyler Murray through it all. But at the end of the day, he had his opportunities last year when Drake was pulled out or when Drake missed some time because he was banged up. And it's like, okay, here we go, man. He's going. This is it. And he never really took advantage of those few opportunities that he had to really prove himself. And I think that really hurt. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, he needs another back. Like you said, he needs a complimentary back. He can take on more of the debate. He can take the bigger workload, say, if you want him to take on the bigger workload, but he needs somebody else there. And that is not Eno Benjamin. That ain't the answer. It needs to be a Trey Sermon, a Colin Hill. It needs to be a guy, an alpha who can go and be the pinball, find the holes, the burst, just be an electric back. And like Colin Hill for me, he's just so electric. Like he's always running with urgency. He's always running with a purpose. And he's always running to get somewhere, even if he's running into the ass of his center or left guard or right guard. He runs with a purpose, and that must hurt when he runs into that offensive line because he misses the hole. But what about you, Jim? What are your thoughts on Colin Hill? I know you're a little bit more mixed on it.
Arizona would be a really good fit. If you're in a league with me and I own Chase Edmonds, you can just fast forward this a little bit, but because he's an RB1. But for real, Chase Edmonds reminds me of a lot of like Alexander Madison, a guy that like when you get the chance, you think you're gonna plug him in, and then like just fucking falls on his face. So it's just constantly disappointing. You know what I mean? Like Dalvin Cook goes out, you put him Madison, you think you're gonna get a good game. He's like 62 yards, and yay, awesome. You're like, fuck, awesome. That's great. But he needs a complimentary back, absolutely. And, you know, the wide receiver core there is looking pretty good. You got an electric quarterback. I don't think you're going to be really seeing stacked boxes in RPO anyway. So, like, you're going to get the ball on the best opportunities so that's going to afford you. So, to see Colin Hill there, that'd be pretty nice. Maybe – they got too many running backs already, though. But like Kyle Shanahan and San Francisco, but they got like fucking 16 running backs back there or something. I don't know. But
there's never too many running backs in that offense. He's got a stable ready, and it feels like 2 or 3 of them get injured every damn year. So he's always got a stable of them lined up.
If he went to San Francisco, the one thing we can definitely guarantee is he's going to have at least 2 good games in fantasy as a spot starter. That's a fact.
that is for sure.
It's tailor-made for running backs.
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely.
for sure. Before we jump into tier 3, there's 3 guys there that we're going to talk about. Quick shout out to Viridian Global. Jim's rocking all the Viridian Global gear over there, helping create the gear that the podcasters wear and the Fantasy Football Collective over there. There's shirts for winners, there's shirts for losers, there's shirts for all your favorite podcasts over there at Viridian Global, ViridianGlobal.com, or at Viridian Global on Twitter. And a final quick word from Monkey Knife Fight.
If you want the best DFS player prop games in the industry, jump onto Monkey Knife Fight. Monkey Knife Fight is sweeping the nation right now, and we at True North are proud to be doing it along with them. They've got games for all sports and skill levels that are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat, with endless opportunity to watch your winnings pile up. With our promo code TNFF, Monkey Knife Fight will match your first deposit up to $50. So sign up now with our promo code and you can get up to $50 of free money to start making some bank. Again, that's monkeyknifefight.com, and the promo code is TNFF at your first deposit to start playing today.
All right, and now we'll move into tier 3, and we'll start with a guy who actually had a bit of a disappointing pro day. Some of the measurements and some of his athletic metrics, I think, disappointed some people, at least the scouts in the fantasy world, which are very unique scouts, to say the least. So, Damian, let's start with Ramandra Stevenson and your thoughts on him. And this is the start of tier 3.
Oh, man. Ramandra Stevenson is another back. I'm going to start off with landing spot that I really felt like would fit in Atlanta. That, you know, big physical downhill runner. When I watched him, quick feet, light feet, for a guy that was played at 240, 245, that was kind of shocking when I saw it at first. I was like, okay, so he moves a lot quicker for a guy his size who's nearly 250. Now, of course, he dropped down to 227 for the Senior Bowl, and they saw him in the passing drills where he's just putting in work against linebackers in the Texas drill in one-on-ones, and he looked a lot quicker. The one thing about it is, from a scouting standpoint, is you wonder the commitment. Anytime a guy weight fluctuates like that, we've seen it before, which is why I kind of compared him, not in a negative way, but I compared him to Eddie Lacy when he was on his game, right? When he was slim. Light feet, physical runner, downhill, but as well, not just great in pass protection to get standing there and protect and keep your quarterback clean, but you could throw the ball to him out in the flats, and he had the vision, the patience to allow blockers to set up, get into open space, and once he gets rolling, it's like a locomotive. Defensive backs don't want to hit a 225-pounder, nonetheless a 245-pounder. That's just the nature of the game. It's like he gets in the open field and he's rolling. It's like, yeah, I'm trying to ankle bite him. I'm trying to, what was that? Dan Campbell that said they're taking out kneecaps. Like, they're doing things of that nature, trying to take down a big back like him. But he was actually kind of fun, because a lot of people kept telling me about him. And I never really I didn't watch him. I saw him during the games in the season, but I didn't actually study his tape. And once the All 22 came in, and I actually watched him, I was like, okay, like he's impressive. Like I really liked what I saw from him. Like I said, the main thing for me is from just a pure commitment standpoint. Can you keep the weight under control? We saw Eddie Lacy struggle with that. That was the doom of his career. Because if Eddie Lacy stayed at 227, Eddie Lacy he was a top 7 back in the league because he had everything you wanted. Literally every trait that you needed, he had that, but he couldn't stay committed from a weight standpoint. So that's the red flag for me. Is like, what am I going to get? What Ramandra Stevenson is not what I get pre-draft. It's what I'm going to get after the draft when OTAs kick in, mini camps, and when we take that couple weeks off, that month off, and we come in the end of July for training camp. Where are you going to be from a conditioning standpoint? Because when I start running these 110 sprints, are you going to be one of the first guys to tap out, or are you going to be in the right shape to make it through? And that's the one thing I do worry about. But from a skill set standpoint, man, Ramandra he's a late round guy, a little mid round guy. I have him late 4th, 5th, somewhere in there. Like I said, his pro day wasn't the best for sure, so that didn't help. But just looking at him and what he brings to the table, I could see, like I said, depending on the land spot, if he falls to Atlanta, similar to Trey Sermon, those are the 2 guys I jostle back and forth with for Atlanta, because I really think give Arthur Smith that big, burly, physical back, give him what he's used to with the weapons they already have there. And it's like, man, we're barbecuing right now, like with the good stuff. Like, we're good.
Yeah, for Ramandra Stevenson, like I get his speed and his 40 disappointed and stuff, and I understand that, but he looks quicker on tape, man, and that just might be that he's just a massive human being, like you said. It reminds me of that's a guy like Derrick Henry who you don't want to run into 20 times a game, especially when it's like minus temperatures or whatever. If you're playing in the cold or whatever, that's a human being you don't want to run into. So I think he can fit really well. I don't think he's ever going to be an RB1, like a focal point of an offense. I don't think he's got the skill set like a Derrick Henry to be that focal point, but I think that he could work really well behind like another back, like another like Philadelphia again, like with Miles Sanders. Because Miles Sanders, he needs to be behind. Like he needs someone who can take some of the harder hits, the heavier hits off of his body, because Miles Sanders has had his issues with injuries too. So it'd be nice to see some of that come off to a guy like Ramandra Stevenson, who can take some of those hits and hasn't generally had much of an injury history to say for him. So, which is a good thing. But yeah, from that standpoint, like the Eddie Lacy example, man, when you are tying in weight into your contract, you're getting bonused out on keeping weight. There's an issue there, and you definitely don't want to see that type of thing come with a Ramandra Stevenson.
No.
Because if he can stay around 230, 240, I think that's the tipping point there. 240, like once you're kind of stopped there, Ramandra Stevenson can be an absolute monstrosity of a human who will cause a ton of disruption. For me, just not a fantasy asset. I wouldn't even really go after him in fantasy drafts unless he can really find a way to be the focal point, not just 8 to 10 carry guy, just taking some of the load off of your lead back or your lightning back, your quicker back. What are your thoughts on him, Jim?
Well, I'm really hoping, because you mentioned Derrick Henry, and you mentioned Arthur Smith, so I'm hoping to God Arthur Smith doesn't look at the measurables of him and try to think of him Derrick Henry light, because he's not fucking Derrick Henry. You know what Derrick Henry does? If you look at Derrick Henry's tape, never gets caught from fucking behind once he breaks that line. You know what Ramandra Stevenson does? Gets caught from behind on everybody that's falling over. Like, that is not a trait for him. So, like, just because they're both, 6'3", fucking 240 plus pound backs, like, get out of here with this shit. Like, yeah, he's a big back, but like, oh man, he's more like, if Atlanta's gonna go with him, they got Kadri Olison. Keep Kadri Olison. I don't really see exactly. I see. I'm just saying, like you already got a back like that. Like that's not going to be an RB1. You both admit that he's probably not going to be an RB1. The only way is if say he goes to Cincinnati and Mixon goes down, but that won't even happen because like I don't know, Bernard or Gio Bernard and his mustache have something like the dad power over the entire coaching staff.
I need that release to happen, man. I'm so tired of seeing him in Cincinnati.
There's like I can't see any viable team where he's going to be fantasy relevant. Not like, I don't know. Like I just can't. There's like maybe Atlanta, but there's so many other backs that are better than him that Atlanta could just take, and not even expensively. Like we talked about, Trey Sermon, that's not an expensive back to take. Kylie Hill, it's not an expensive back to take. They could both work much better. And you're not like, what's the price difference once you're drafting that late in the draft? Not much from a cap issue. You're not talking about 5th overall, $25 million fucking contract here. You're talking about league minimum. So it doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, the Eagles have 11 picks in the draft, and only the first 4 would fall under the top 51, which is what the cap counted on. So he probably wouldn't even land in your top 51, depending on who you're paying and where you're paying them. So you're literally getting a guy who's just not counting worth anything from that type of monetary standpoint. But yeah, Ramandra Stevenson, his long distance, if we're talking like a 400-meter runner, like he's more of the 50-meter, no hurdles, 50-meter runner. Because if there's hurdles involved, he's running into that hurdle. He's falling on that. So
he's not Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a ridiculous type of for that type of stature. He's a ridiculous type of athlete. More so when you look at the reason I threw out Atlanta still has some offensive line issues. So, of course, for me, I'm looking at the entire draft aspect of it, or what they could do if they don't want to go running back early. They can improve that offensive line. Like I said, interior, maybe, if they want to kick one of their – Mitch McGary, whatever his name is, that they reached for 2 years ago. Dear God. Like, they could kick him inside if they wanted to. They could do a lot of different things. So, if they want to go early offensive line, like I said, DB – defense as well, linebacker. They have a lot of other pressing needs. Running back isn't a very important need for them because they really don't have their guy. But it's like for them, defense has always been their issue. So I could see them valuing improving the defense, whether it's with a Chaz Surratt or any of these explosive linebackers, safeties, whatever. Then if you want to go and, like you said, you're in the 5th round, like, man, we have not addressed the running back position. Like Ramandra Stevenson, I actually had someone actually played with him, and we were played against him. We talked about him, and it was like, dude, he's such a headache to deal with because for all 4 quarters, he doesn't stop. Like he keeps churning and churning. He's literally like a locomotive. Like he starts off slow and he just keeps going and keeps burling over you to it's like, and that's just the thing about it. So for me, especially in a zone blocking scheme, get him one cut, get upfield north and south. I think he fits that run scheme. He's not Derrick Henry, but he brings a physicality that Arthur Smith is used to. He just doesn't have that long speed. I don't think there's too many human beings that's Derrick Henry's size.
No,
that brings that long speed.
No. But like that's the unicorn in him. You know what I mean? Like you look at any one of Derrick Henry's runs. Yeah, he pounds you for 3 quarters, and then the 4th quarter he breaks a long run. He's never getting caught though. He'll never get caught.
He doesn't get tired. He doesn't get tired at all. Like he just dishes the punishment. You're just like 4th quarter here, and you're a defender. And you're looking at him like, when will this end? Like when will this stop? And you're looking at your defensive line in the huddle, like you guys need to stop him from getting to the 2nd level because I'm tired. Like I'm sick and tired of throwing my shoulder into his thigh pad and he just brushes me off like I'm a gnat. Like this needs to stop. Like, and it's just that's the way it is. And then we've seen it against the Ravens, the playoff series 2 years ago or last year, whatever it was. Like, he just keeps churning, and next thing you know, he bends back the run and takes it up the sideline, and he's using Earl Thomas as his chauffeur down the sideline. And it's just like this guy. He's an animal. He's an animal.
Definitely.
I'm
Love it.
thinking about it. I've been thinking there is a place that he could be if Tampa Bay wanted to bring him in as like a poor man's Lenny Fournette, and if they like that pairing with Ronald Jones, that could maybe work for
That's
him.
another one. Yep.
Yeah, for me, Tampa, I think they need like a Michael Carter or
for sure.
A guy who could definitely be a pass catcher versus just another guy to pound the ball. You know, Tom Brady, he although he'd love to have the weight off his shoulder, I don't think he wants to see two guys who at certain points in the game are going to get you 1 yard, 2 yard, 3 yard, get a chunk play, and then just start running into the back of the offensive line again or having issues getting yardage. So we know Tom likes a guy who can get out and do some work. So I don't know if that type of duo will work great. But next up, and I haven't watched a ton of tape. I looked at him a little bit before we came on the air, so I won't act like I know this guy very well. But Khalil Herbert, I will let you go at this one, Damian.
It seems like a lot of running backs in this class are zone type of runners, but he's splashed in the scene when it was like during the season, after like a couple games, I kept hearing his name. And I'm like, who is Khalil Herbert? And everybody's like, man, check him out. So I actually watched him, and I was like, you know what? Like this cat, he's just good at football, man. Like, I really like he's a one-cut runner. He's disciplined. You see some running backs, they want to bounce everything outside or they get a little too impatient and waiting on holes to open up. He's not that guy. He gets square. He gets downfield. I believe I'll look at his measurables really quickly. I think he's like 5'9", 204. He's got a strong, solid frame, low center of gravity, which helps him with his contact balance. He has good speed. Not elite long speed, so he's not Travis Etienne or or any other fast Puka Williams. He's not going to bust a 4.3 or anything, but he's a guy that can come in the committee and be I think he's more of an RB2 in the committee. I don't think he's going to be a number one, but again, at the same time, it's all about fit. So when I look at him, I was like, I kind of see a little bit of the young man from Jacksonville. Was it Robinson? James Robinson?
James Robinson.
So I see a little bit of that in this game as well. Because James Robinson wasn't a splashy running back when you go back to his college tape either. He just was a guy kind of hard hat, lunch pail type of back. You have to come and be prepared to deal with him all 4 quarters. Like I said, sideline to sideline, he has lateral agility, and he has good feet, and that's one of the main things I always look for in a running back. Because you could see, I always tell people, your eyes can see where the hole is. Can your feet take you there, and vice versa? So his eyes and his feet are paired together very well. Because regardless if your feet can get you there, but your eyes don't see the play, you're not going to go to that hole. So he does a good job pairing everything together. I didn't see too much of him in the passing game, so I wonder where he'll be there. But he's solid in pass pro. I think he'll be a good, solid back in the league for fantasy fit or I guess you could say landing spot. You know what? Like, I don't like any Chiefs running back besides Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, I like none of them. Like, not really a fan of any of them. So it's like, for me, I think about the fact that, again, I always look at versatility, creating as many mismatches as possible offensively. I think he'll pair well because he's more of a downhill runner, kind of set the tone type of guy, while Clyde Edwards-Helaire is more of a versatile runner, shifty, in and out of breaks and out of cuts. He doesn't pack a huge punch because he's not the biggest guy. So like you pair him with a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think you could have a nice little 1-2 punch there. Of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be your number one guy who's going to get majority of the touches. But it is Andy Reid calling plays, so you just never know.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I watched 2 games just before coming on, and I see that too. I see a good football player. I see a smart football player. But for me, like, I don't see anywhere where he's going to go in and he's going to make a splash for you in fantasy. He's just someone who you can kind of wait and see. You never know. He could get the James Robinson opportunity where suddenly the barn doors blow open and here he comes walking out with a job and like he's the winner of the lottery. But I mean, I don't see him being worthwhile. him and Ramandra Stevenson are the two people on this list who I see as solid football players who will have a role on a team, but ultimately will not have a role for me or for anyone in fantasy. What are your thoughts on Herbert, Jim, if you have any?
I'd like to see like his pass catching, really. Like a lot of running backs get knocked coming in saying they're not pass catchers because they didn't do it in the college level. And like, let's be frank, college doesn't give a shit about preparing these guys for the NFL level. They do not give a fuck. They just want they want to win, so they get money. That's it. The coach doesn't give a shit. Like even when we were talking about, you said Gainwell put Gibson out of the backfield. I don't really think so because it was a better play. I think because they could get two fucking dynamic playmakers on the field. That was it. And they could win and get money. They want money.
I mean, that's true. That is true.
It's the craziest thing that I've ever seen because like college and universities are supposed to mold young men to go to the next level and be productive members of society, except in NFL. They don't care about getting them ready to do the next job when it comes to running backs on what's going to transition well. NFL adapts to college a lot of times. Like, you see crazy shit coming into the NFL. It's because it's been going through college for 4 or 5 years, and now they're adapting to it. That's just the plain and simple fact of it. Even if you look at the college, like my biggest knock on it is 1 foot down. If you were really training these guys for fucking NFL, it would be 2 feet down straight off the bat.
Yep.
They were wanting to get paid. That's it. So like, I want to see him. I want to see his pass. Sorry for that rant. I want to see his pass catching ability because like. Just because I don't know, like he had a crazy yards per reception last year. It was like 18 yards or something like that. But he doesn't get the ball a lot. Didn't catch a lot of passes. So like just like Melvin Gordon was a perfect example. Got knocked all coming in. He can't catch passes. Comes to the NFL and starts catching passes. And there's no knock on that. No, that's my concern with him.
Yeah, I mean it's I always kind of break up like pass catching traits when it comes to running backs. It's either you could be functional where you're a screen guy, you're a flat outlet guy, or you're a weapon like a Gainwell or McCaffrey's and all those different guys that you can throw them in the slot, different things like that. So when I saw Herbert and I like I said, I didn't see enough of it. A lot of times it's not just a play call. Like I said, I'm talking about Michael Carter, just a darn quarterback. Like look for your outlet, bro. Like that's part of the read. Like I don't care how many good receivers you have. Like I said, you go back and watch Tua. Tua had what we call in college they were called the 4 Lamborghinis. He had Ruggs, Waddle, Judy, and Smith, and he still threw the ball to Najee Harris when Najee Harris was open. So, and I call it the boring play when I'm scouting quarterbacks. Do you take the boring play? Are you willing to? Because one of the biggest problems with quarterbacks is trying to coach them out of looking for the long ball. Chicks dig the long ball. They've been taught that their whole career. And when you're in high school and you got the best athletes at receiver, you could just chuck it deep and it's not a problem. Then you get into college or NFL and it's like, yeah, we play press man coverage out here. Like it's not going to be that easy. Well, where's my outlet? Well, I'm not used to throwing one. Like I watched Sam Darnold do it the whole time he was at USC, and he had Ronald Jones in the flat all the time. And I watched Sam Howell do it to Michael Carter. So to your point, it is like that in college where you can't. I heard the same thing about Todd Gurley coming in. A lot of people say Todd Gurley couldn't catch the ball. I'm like, he wasn't asked to. He was such a dominant runner. He didn't have to catch the darn ball. Like he would knock off 150, 200 yards in the SEC and make it look easy. He didn't have to do that. Like that wasn't what they wanted him to do. So I think Khalil Herbert could be a functional receiver in the passing game. Like I said, screen guy, outlet guy. He may not be able to split out wide and run routes, but he still can get you, especially if teams don't really pay him any attention. Like I saw LeGarrette Blount do that in New England when teams were like, oh, this is LeGarrette Blount. What people don't understand the concept of, that's when you have a physical runner like that, if I throw the ball to him in the flats because you're ignoring him and he picks up speed, guess what that does for you? You're at a disadvantage now. So you should probably pay a little bit more attention to him than dropping off 15 yards and giving them 10 yards to catch full speed, because now you're going to try and ankle bite him or kneecap him like Dan Campbell.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree. There's a part of me that feels like with Herbert that it was a lot to do with the offense. Like I only watched 2 games, and that quarterback wasn't very good. There was they ran the RPO a ton, and it felt like he made the wrong call of which of those three options to take almost every time. And when he actually chose the pass, he wouldn't set his feet. He wouldn't go through his reads. He'd panic, and he would miss Herbert in the flat. Like, I don't know. I probably saw it 3 or 4 times in each of those 2 games where he'd panic, turn to Herbert, and just flat out miss him completely. So part of me feels like the offense there was just maybe the quarterback, but it just felt like he didn't really know what to pick of an RPO or what he was seeing, or couldn't really see the field, and that hurts for Herbert. That hurts.
That's a college football problem, man. I'm telling you, that's a college football problem. Trying to scout and recruit the right QBs, it's something I've been watching for a long time. It's the most frustrating part of scouting is watching a wide receiver prospect and the quarterback play is terrible. It is the most frustrating thing in the world. I've been on record talking about Josh Palmer from Tennessee, traitsy, toolsy receiver. You watch his tape and you're looking at his quarterback like, dude, what are you doing? Why don't you get him the ball more? Why isn't he more productive? What is the problem? And then you watch it, it's like, dude's inaccurate. His ball placement is terrible. He doesn't have good field vision. And it's like, okay, so this is why he doesn't have 1,000 or 1,500 yards receiving in probably his career, because his quarterback play was bad. And it's just like it's a conundrum that college has not figured out yet.
Definitely, yeah. That I can see why I didn't see much of his play before, because they were hard games to watch. So I can definitely see why I didn't get the chance to watch tape on Herbert, but. Finally, the last guy in this tier 3 is someone who had ridiculous college production. And it's kind of weird that we talk about him at the back end of a tier 3. So I'll let you pick up on it with Chuba Hubbard.
Man, Chuba is a boom or bust. He's legit boom. When the blocking scheme, it's frustrating kind of studying him for me as somebody that loves the running back position, because it's like he's not a guy that's going to get you much yards over expectation per se. So he's he's going to be on par in a way. He's a zone runner through and through, in my opinion. You can kind of get some production out of him with some man blocking gap scheme stuff, but mostly with his speed and his burst, you want to get him pushing perimeter wise and cutting up into the holes that are there. Again, what receiving prowess is not really there either. That's not something they asked him to do much at OK State. I didn't see a ton of that. I do think with his speed, he's functional in the screen game, because when you have a guy that can legitimately go 90 yards in 5 seconds, that's kind of ridiculous. So that's actually terrifying in terms of speed. When you got a guy that can take the ball from the 10 and take it 90 yards that fast is what he's able to do with his burst, his long speed, because he has that track background. That's great. But again, for me, it's just more so, can he create on his own when the offensive line doesn't do their job? Because as a running back, you got to understand, offensive line cannot block perfect every play. It's not going to happen. It's impossible. So when the defensive line resets the line of scrimmage, can he get you yards? Can he still get 4 or 5 yards, 3 or 4 yards on his own? And I don't see that with him. That's why I have him so low, because I think he's going to be he's going to be an offensive line dependent type of running back. I love his speed and his athletic traits, but when OK State's offensive line didn't open up gaping holes, he didn't have the most production, and that's the main thing for me. Is I look at some of the other guys. ETN is a little bit better at it, but Najee still is able to cut, drop weight, jump cut, different ways to find himself into open field. I don't see that with Chuba Hubbard. So not saying that he can't do it, but I haven't seen it yet. So it's granted, that's what off-season workouts are for. As a player, you do that on your own to figure out your flaws and get better at. But that's why he's low for me. I still like him, but for me, also landing, the landing spot will be big. And we talked about it earlier. San Francisco has like 25 running backs, but that is a blocking scheme and an offensive scheme in general that he could flourish in. You look at a Raheem Mostert, like legit, one cut and go blazer. That's kind of what the kind of comp that I have for Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, I mean Chuba, he had to get the ball a ton, so that speaks to the whole idea that you're never going to get the perfect hold, always run through. Like the man, like you look at his attempts in 2020, like he had 27, he had 22, 20, 25, 25. You're not going to get that type of share. I don't think there's any team with that type of opportunity share available and open at his disposal. He feels like a guy who's just got to get a ton of carries. Like if you give him 8 carries, the guy's probably going to walk out of there with max 20, 25 yards. And that'll be the end of his night for you. But if you give him 20 carries, suddenly you're looking at a guy who might get 100 yards. But it kind of reminds me of Leonard Fournette a little bit in that way, where in Jacksonville, Leonard Fournette, he would pound the ball, he'd run and run and run. 18 times he'd run for between 1 and 3 yards. And then in the fourth quarter, boom, he lights it up for that like 75, 80-yard touchdown running out. There he is. But Chuba Hubbard kind of reminds me of that same type of Leonard Fournette in Jacksonville type player, not playoff Lenny, but like Jacksonville Lenny, and the frustrating fantasy asset that we all hated to want and need. But you're not going to find any crew that's going to be more supportive of Chuba Hubbard than this crew, because he is from Canada. And we love our Canadian football players succeeding in the NFL, not the NFL, the NFL.
Yeah,
we would love to see the success for Chuba, kind of like we saw from Chase Claypool, proud Canadian as well. But Jim, what are your thoughts on Chuba?
I like to call him the call and put, right? Like this guy's stock's gone up, gone down, gone up, gone down. Like it doesn't matter. Like he should have came out last year. If you really want to know, he should have came out last year. This year did nothing to help his draft stock at all.
They actually hurt his draft stock, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And the only team I would like to see, I don't see him as an RB1, at least not in his rookie year. I do see him as a great compliment to James Robinson, though, in Jacksonville.
I love
He's
that.
the guy I would like to see just spelling him. Give James Robinson still like 75% of the carries and let Chuba spell him, man. But because, I mean, I don't know where Devin Nzingbo is or Reichwell Armstead. I don't think Carlos Hyde is really a viable threat to what they need to pair him with anyway. I think Carlos Hyde's more of a guy like if James Robinson was to go down, you'd slide Carlos Hyde in there.
Absolutely. Great point. Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah, I kind of like him there as well. I mean, the opportunity's there, and they're building something in Jacksonville, and they're going to open up the field, and he can be a guy that can definitely get, like you said, he can get like 5 to 8 snaps a game. Well, James Robinson is ill-affected as he gets his 12 to 18 or whatever that he would normally get in that offense, and perhaps even more, because like we said, the game script should flip immensely with Jacksonville as the team continues to improve and with Trevor Lawrence coming in and stuff. And Chuba, like we're talking about him as a tier 3, and I mean he's looking like probably an early day 3 pick too. Like he looks like someone who you're probably going to be able to catch in the 5th round, like 4th round, 5th round. It all depends. It feels like there's going to be a run on the running backs in rounds 4 and 5. So he probably will land in that area for sure. Well, Damian, one more thing before we close out this show. Is there a James Robinson in this class? We all like to look for him. We're always looking as fantasy owners, like we want who's going to be that guy. We want to find that guy. And I know that the opportunity is not really there by the time the draft rolls through. But is there anyone you got your eye on that could surprise as a UDFA?
Yeah, I go to Cincinnati. Jared Dokes, 6'1", 225. Just a physical, powerful downhill runner. Big back, he runs angry, loves contact, and he's great in pass protection. And as a running back, that's going to keep you on the roster. Period. Because there's not a ton of backs that excel in pass protection. So when you can pass protect and help the quarterback keep him clean, coaches love that. So he can earn his way onto the field in that regard as well. He's functional in the passing game. He's got quickness and he's more elusive as well than you would think for a 225-pound back. I really like his game. Like I said, late in the rounds, if he, a seventh rounder, undrafted free agent, you bring him in, see if you can carve a rollout on special teams to earn more, to keep himself on the roster, and then he earns those snaps behind a veteran. Like I said, landing spot. I don't even have one, to be honest with you. I want to put all the running backs in Buffalo. Like I want to put every running back in Buffalo. I'm so frustrated. I'm so frustrated for Josh Allen. I'm just like, he cannot throw the ball 4 times a game, guys. Like, I understand Pat Mahomes has done it, but Pat Mahomes is a little different than most quarterbacks. So please give Josh Allen the run game. Like Devin Singletary isn't it. Zack Moss is such a physical, aggressive runner that has injury concerns, which doesn't really pair well for longevity. So find Josh Allen a complimentary running back, please, Buffalo. Do that for not just fantasy owners, but for me as a running back enthusiast. I need a running back in Buffalo. I want to see in the snow someone running for 200 yards while Josh Allen kicks his feet up and drinks some tea because he doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I can completely agree with that. And I know that Philly took a shot at a big Cincinnati running back, since he seems to love those big backs. I think it was Michael Warren last year. Yes, I was really hoping that they would give him an opportunity. I think he would have been a really good thunder to Sanders lightning, like that Jordan Howard light. You had Jordan Howard and Sanders. They worked so well together, and I wanted to see Michael Warren go up there. And instead, we stuck rolling with Boston Scott, Adrian Killins from time to time periodically, and Corey Clement when he wasn't nursing some sort of injury with basically every part of the body that was broken on him. So, I mean, I really wanted to see Michael Warren get his opportunity there, because when they got him, I looked him up. I was like, this dude's big. This dude's like, since he seems to love a nice big 225 back who can pound that rock, and I was really hoping that would happen. So I could see him in Philadelphia, but I can see a lot of people in Philadelphia because my Sanders needs help, and help ain't Boston Scott. So.
No, not at all.
Any final comments there before I close out the show there, Jim?
Not on. I was just looking at that Jared Dokes. Jesus Christ. That guy looks like he's an angry guy that's gonna smash some people's teeth in.
Yeah, he's aggressive.
Just wanted to tell some people March Madness is happening. I know we don't cover basketball, but in the spirit of March Madness, if you want to buy a Gold Jacket t-shirt, like if you're watching the live stream I'm wearing right now, or a Gold Jacket hoodie, you will be entered, if you DM me, in for a prize of a Gold Jacket Flex Fit hat by Viridian Global. So if you buy it by the end of March, right? That's when March Madness ends next week. This week,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before the end of March, we ain't gonna call it April Madness. We got it. March Madness. So.
I'll run the promo again as April Fools.
Love it. Well, Damian, this was awesome having you on. Thank you to everyone who watched, and thank you to everyone who's going to listen when boy Jim puts this out in podcast form. Make sure to rate, review, like, or comment wherever you're listening or watching. We always want to improve this show and improve ourselves as we continue through this off season. Join us next week. We're going to touch on looking at the 2020 draft class and how the 2021 class mixes in with them based on their rookie performances. So we're going to take a look at that. We haven't actually lined up a guest for certain that week, but then we head into April, which is super exciting because we got a nice lineup of guests for draft season. But yeah, we definitely got to thank you again, Damian, for coming on. Damian, tell the people where they can find you, because you are doing some great work, and I've heard your boss at the Crocker Report on some podcasts. He's a good guy, man. He's a stud, an awesome guy.
That's my guy, man. Eric Crocker, shout out to him. You can find me on Twitter, DP_NFL, as well as over at the Crocker Report, as well as Raising Sona. We have a lot of content coming out. We're doing the Cluster Buster series where we're going through and ranking the top positions. We did quarterbacks last week. We did running backs last night, and that's already up on Apple Podcasts. We're doing receivers this Saturday as well, and then we're getting into DBs as well. Just kind of breaking up the cluster, man, ranking these prospects as we watch more and more tape on them and see what traits they have. And as well as, hey, listen, my next mock will be out soon. Once kind of the smoke from free agency, all the money that's being printed out and spent. Once that's kind of, settled down, I have my next mock, my mock 4.0 4-rounder coming out as well. And just like I said, a lot of content, man. I got another receiver article that's going to be out in a couple of days as well. So definitely stay tuned. I have a ton of content, and I'll have my updated top 10 running back rankings for the 2021 drafts.
Yeah, the Brinks truck is definitely starting to pull away, but there's some guys with some good 40 speed that are keeping up and getting the last of the money before it's all said and done there. So you can follow Jim on Twitter at GoldJacketQBs. He just dropped a nice article about Jamar Chase. And you can follow me on Twitter at Connor10. I currently don't have a ton on the go. I dropped an article looking at centers that the Eagles should consider in the draft because Jason Kelsey, well, he ain't going to go forever. So I've been working a bit on that stuff for the Eagles and getting my Eagles mock drafts ready as well. And shout out to the whole True North Fantasy Football crew. Follow the TNFF Network on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at True North FFB and on the good old-fashioned internet, TrueNorthFFB.com. We have a new site launching here very soon. Some nice stuff coming out with that site launch. And that's all for this week. We will see you next Tuesday.
Yeah.